I'm reading. What are you reading? Haven't you heard of the Witney Story? No. Come with me, everyone, into the Witney Story.
Now, there may be some of you who have never heard of me. Yes? Yes, I see a few puzzled faces out there. Let me explain. I was rector of St. Mary's, Witney, rather a long time ago. Over 100 years ago, in fact. In December 1890, I was asked to give a talk on the history of Witney. I was pleased to accept, and I'm happy to say my talk was a great success. I'm here tonight to perform a similar function. That is to say, I'm going to talk you through several scenes from the history of your town. Now, if by chance you are wondering why someone who died in 1904 is able to be with you tonight, this is a mystery that will be unraveled for you in the life hereafter, and not, I regret, before. Enough about me. What about Witney? We will start our story as far back as we can go, 969, in the reign of King Edgar.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Your Majesty.
You are a man of the cloth, I see.
I am.
Excellent. I don't know what I'd do without my clergy. With their help, and the help of God Almighty, of course, I have remained on the throne of all England for these past 10 years. Quite a record in troubled times.
I was about to tell these good people here how Witney acquired its first charter.
Ah, I can help you there. You see, it isn't easy to keep control of the law in a large kingdom like this. The Thanes, you Normans call them barons, they need watching. they get some very big ideas sometimes, and that can cause a great deal of trouble. So, the sensible thing to do is to make them responsible for the law in their own district. I grant them sack and sock. I'm sure you know what that is.
Yes, Your Majesty, but there may be some here present who do not.
Sack and sock is the right to hold a court of law. And in that court, they may keep the fines that they impose. This for the fines can be very profitable. And then, of course, they have infan theft.
Oh, really?
Infan theft is the right to try thieves and hang them if necessary. And then there's hamsopny,
Of course.
Hamsopny is the right to try housebreakers. This keeps the thieves and the thanes out of this. Most ingenious, don't you think? Now, perhaps you would tell these good people in your own words how the law is administered.
Very well, Your Majesty. Let's hope I've got this right. Sack the right to hold the court, hold the court, hold the court. Sack is the right to hold the court. Sock is the same, I've always thought, I've always thought, I've always thought. Sock is the same, I've always thought. By proclamation heretofore, the Thanes have the right to enforce the law, enforce the law, enforce the law, and softly puts the thieves in thrall, the thieves in thrall, the thieves in thrall, and softly puts the thieves in thrall. In fact, hang them all, hang them all, hang them all, in fact, hang them all. God save the King.
Anyway, that's why I'm here today. I have divided up my large estate of Bampton, and I have granted 30 hides of it to Thane Elfhelm. It's good land. Each hide will support one family, so that's 30 families taken care of. Witney, they call the place. It's on the banks of the River Windrush. I've had the land carefully measured, and the boundaries are marked out on this chart, so there should be no mistake about it. I wonder how Thane Elfhelm will cope with his new responsibilities. Elfhelm, here is your charter. Rule the land well in my name.
In Witney, because there are no records. We do know that by the year 1044, the land was again in the king's hands, because he granted a charter giving it to the Bishop of Winchester, whose name was Alfwine. Of course, it wasn't the same king. This time, the charter was signed by King Edward, the one they called the Confessor. This marked the beginning of our town's long connections with the bishops of Winchester. beg your pardon, Your Majesty.
I signed that charter too, you know, as well as my son the king. And not only that, there's a street named after me in this very town, and a school, and a dike, and a women's institute, and a team of Morris dancers. And I don't believe you even know who I am.
Oh, yes, I do, Your Majesty. You're Queen Emma.
Oh. Now, let's see what else you know. Who's my father?
Well, unless I'm very much mistaken, Your Majesty, he was a Norman nobleman, and you came over from Normandy when you were very young to get married.
And who did this very young French princess marry?
King Ethelred, I believe, Your Majesty.
Ethelred. Oh, what an imbecile he was. We didn't want to get married, but kings and princesses didn't have much choice. Anyway, we managed to be in two different places most of the time. You know what his nickname was?
Yes, Ethelred the... Splendid.
It suited him very well. But he wasn't the only king I married, was he?
No, if I'm not very much mistaken, King Canute was your second husband.
That is so. And quite a different proposition, I can assure you. Not every woman can say she has been married to two kings, can she? And there is more. Two of my sons have sat on the throne of England. First Hardy Canute, oh boy, and now Edward. He's an ungrateful fellow. But that's another story. You know why they were murdered here in Witney?
Well, I've heard of a legend, but there's some considerable doubt as to the truth of the matter.
I see. And does this legend tell of the appalling ordeal I had to suffer in order to preserve my honor?
Yes, it does.
It wasn't a legend to me, I can assure you. The Archbishop of Canterbury, a most treacherous fellow, has the barefaced impudence to accuse me of a liaison with the Bishop of Winchester. Can you imagine? And my son, my wonderful son, believed him instead of throwing him into prison. I was outraged. I, the Queen Mother, suspected of behaving like a common slut. There was only one thing for me to do. I insisted on undergoing the ordeal of the Red Hot Plowshare. There were 9 of them, in the nave of Winchester Cathedral. My eyes were covered. I could feel the glowing heat from those fiery strips of metal, and the smoke from them filled my nostrils, almost choking me. I knew I must walk among them without being burned, only then would my innocence be proved. I also knew, of course, that right was on my side, but there was the same. I couldn't suppress a small frisson of fear. I was completely blameless. To mark the occasion, I gave 9 manners to Winchester Cathedral, and the king gave 3. The bishop too gave 9, and one of them was Witney. That young man is why there remember me here. That is your legend.
But Your Majesty, I beg of you, tell me this. Is it true?
Wouldn't you just like to know? Never
Charter of 1044 marked the beginning of Witney's connection with Winchester Cathedral and its bishops. Now, the bishops were great builders, and under their orders the church flourished over the centuries. The porch you see nowadays dates from Norman times. One of St. Mary's glories is the early English tower, with its beautiful spire rising 150 foot into the air. I shall say more about the church a little later. When the Bishop of Winchester came to Witney, they needed somewhere to stay. And as it was so near Woodstock where the king had a palace, they were quite likely to receive visits from royalty. So they had a comfortable manor house built near the church. It has spacious living quarters, a hall and a chapel, as well as kitchens, cellars, and stables. In the middle of the 12th century, the bishop was Henry of Blois. He was a very important man, the brother of King Stephen, who, as I'm sure you know, struggled for the throne against the Empress Matilda and eventually won. Henry of Blois was extremely ambitious.
Are you sure no messenger has arrived today?
Positive, my lord.
How much longer do I have to wait, I wonder? Surely he must have made up his mind by now.
Is your business with the king so very urgent, my lord?
Oh, you needn't pretend you don't know. I've made no secret of it. Well, I've supported him all these years. Surely I deserve some kind of reward. What are brothers for, after all? If I hadn't given him the treasury at Winchester, he would probably never even have been crowned. And all I want in return is to be the Archbishop of Canterbury. It's been done before. And you know as well as I do that Stigand was Bishop of Winchester and Archbishop of Canterbury at the very same time. If he can do it, so can I.
Just so, my lord.
Well, I suppose I mustn't be impatient. It's just a question of waiting. But there is so much I want to do. My head is aching with all the plans that I've made for the church and for the country. My brother needs me. Why can't he admit it?
From His Majesty the King, my lord.
Get out of my sight! He has refused me. Can you believe it? After everything I've done to help him achieve his only ambition, he refuses me the one thing that would make my life complete. And what do you think of that?
For God to say, my lord, not for me.
Yes, you're right. This is the time for prayer. Leave me now, please. I wish to pray alone.
As you wish, my lord.
No, it's no good. I'm too full of anger against that ungrateful fool of a brother of mine. May God forgive me. From now on, Stephen will have to do without my help. Perhaps that is God's will. Perhaps the Empress Matilda is God's chosen ruler for this country. From this day forward, my allegiance is to Matilda, and I shall do everything within my power to place her upon the throne of England.
Henry of Blois had made a new enemy, his brother, King Stephen. That meant that his manor houses, including Witney Palace, might be attacked by the royal army at any time. He therefore took measures to fortify it.
All right, then, lads. Short break here.
Oh, here's more.
Dad,
Oh, there, Ma.
I promised you, didn't I?
Thanks, Ma.
Morning.
Oh, morning, missus. Morning, Peggy.
Morning. Here, what's going on then?
I'll give you one guess.
Well, like guys in my head, I can see you've been digging something, but what are you digging and what for?
Tell her, Alan.
Well, I don't know, do I? You're the foreman. You says digs, I digs. That's all there is to it.
Oh, well, we got a big job on here. We've got to take all this soil from over here and we've got to place it round the palace walls.
What?
We've got to place it round the palace walls.
front, side and back until the ground floor is covered up. Then the ground floor becomes the cellar.
Right, go on now, a joke's a joke. Tell us what you're really doing.
Serious, it's Bishop's orders.
The old boy must be out of his mind.
No, he's just trying to pay us out for being nosy, 'tis all.
Oh, I swear to you, by God, it's true.
Well, you better tell us why then. It don't make no sense to me.
Well, that's the interesting bit. The bishop wants the palace fortified. So that's how we're going to do it. If we covers up the ground floor, the enemy are not going to be able to get in.
The enemy? What enemy? What do you want about?
He must mean that Empress Matilda. For the last I heard, she wasn't even in England.
Well, that's another funny thing.
It would be.
The bishop never said nothing to me, of course,
He wouldn't.
as he would be.
No.
But I did overhear one of the priests say the bishop's fallen out with the king.
He said what?
He said the bishop's fallen out with the king. Now he's on that Matilda's side.
But he's the king's brother.
Oh, Peg, haven't you ever heard of brothers falling out?
Ah, you know what that means?
No.
They might come to Witney to get the bishop.
And he might send his soldiers too. That's what worries me.
Ah.
Because if the king thinks the bishop's their enemy, he's going to think the people of Witney are too.
Oh my God! That means he'll be rampaging through the streets of Witney. He'll be setting fire to our houses. And he'll be having his women.
Steady on, Mark. You'll be all right, girl. You'll see.
Oh, we'll protect you, old girl, won't we?
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Yeah. Anyway, about time you got back to work. So, sooner we got this place finished, the safer the bishop will be.
Never mind about that bishop. What about us, eh? And I'll burn you.
We know that Henry of Bra did not succeed in placing the Empress Matilda on the throne of England. It also seems fairly certain that King Stephen's troops did not invade the streets of Witney, and that consequently the women of the town were able to sleep relatively easily in their beds. After the conflicts and uncertainties of the 12th century, great changes came to Witney with the dawn of the 13th. In 1205, a new bishop took over the see of Winchester. His name was Peter de Roche, and he is the reason why Witney is the shape it is today. Ah, here he comes now. Good evening, my Lord Bishop.
Good evening to you, sir. Well, to think, I planned all this. The church is still standing, I see. I had most of it rebuilt, you know, using nothing but the best materials. The spire looks most impressive, doesn't it?
Yes, indeed, my Lord, but that's not the original spire you had built.
I beg your pardon?
Have no fear, my Lord. Your spire lasted at least 400 years, but in 1636, something terrible happened. Now, the finest stonemason in the era was Humphrey Smith of Abingdon, and the church wardens agreed to pay him £200 to rebuild the spire.
Master Smith, your payment.
We said £200 to me. You haven't forgotten, have you, sir?
No.
Feels more like about 130 to me. That means you owe me £62 and £8 for extra work.
We do not. Our agreement was for you to build up the spire to a substantial height and near its former proportions. Well, the spire's not as tall as it was. It's shorter by 6 feet. We had it measured.
Are you casting doubt on my professional competence? Are you daring to suggest that my workmanship is faulty?
The church wardens have decided that £138 is a suitable remuneration for your work.
Suitable? I believe this. I've spent £20 of my own money on expenses, And I know you've collected £380 for repairs.
The church warden's decision is final, I'm afraid.
Right.
Right.
Right. I shan't take this line now. I shall call in experts to certify that my work is satisfactory. And then I shall appeal to the Archbishop. We'll see what he has to say to you. I'll have my money if it's the last thing I do.
Smith did as he threatened, and the church wardens had to pay up.
I admire a man who sticks to his principles, especially where money is concerned. Oh yes, money is important. What else can you tell me about one church?
Well, it has been looked after over the centuries, sometimes better than others, and in 1867 it was extensively restored.
Oh, why was that, may I ask?
Well, I'm sorry to say it had become rather dilapidated. The timbers were rotten, there were holes in the floor, the roof leaked, and the building was infested with toads.
I see. I won't inquire as to how it got into that state. I must inspect the interior before I leave.
No, I'm sure you'll be delighted with it, my lord.
I looked for my palace, you know, but it seems to have gone. There's some sort of enormous tent where it used to stand. Quite extraordinary. Have the Saracens moved in?
No. When I was rector here, over 100 years ago, there was nothing at all to be seen on that site. But lately, the archaeologists have been discovering the remains and ruins of arches and walls. The tent is there to protect the ruins.
Ruins, yes, of course. How sad. What a lot I could tell them if only it was allowed, but you and I both know that that's not possible. Yes, I had great plans for Witney, and they seem to have been successful. My aim was to transform a little village into a bustling market town, and so I set up a market, a big one. I wanted my new town to be really prosperous, so I offered all sorts of incentives for people to come and live here. For example, residents didn't have to pay tolls, and they were completely exempt from all responsibility for upkeep of the town walls.
But were there any town walls?
Well, no, as it happens, there weren't, but had any been built. They would be free of all responsibility for them. Now, that's a privilege worth having, you'll agree. I had a bridge built too. This was all part of my plan. The old way into the town went past the manor house at Cox. Now, that didn't suit me at all. People coming in that way missed seeing half the market. I wanted them to see it all. And while they were about it, they could view the highly desirable plots of land I had to rent alongside the marketplace. So I bridged the Windrush and brought the road in that way. That same road connected the town with a little place called Newland. You probably know it. That was a development by a friend of mine by the name of Robert Darcy. And Bridge Street, as it began, made a most convenient entrance into the town.
I believe present-day residents complain of traffic congestion in that area, my lord.
Oh, you mean those appalling machines I see charging up and down, disturbing the peace? Oh, I've no sympathy with them. Of course, the main attraction to our town was the new market, which extended right up to the church. I see a beautiful green there now, but no sign of any stalls. Can you tell me what has become of them?
Well, there is still a market, my lord, but it's quite small. Most shopping these days is done under cover in huge buildings. Supermarkets, I think they're called.
Oh, I suppose it's progress. Oh, but I wish you could have seen my market, with its noisy crowds, its stalls all overflowing with foodstuffs and goods, its animals. Oh, whenever I visited Witney, I enjoyed market days the most. Welcome, Your Majesty. Nobody liked him, nobody trusted him, but he was king and had to be obeyed. His son Henry now, he was so different. Poor boy, He was only 9 years old when his father died. I was afraid for him, but he survived. A most intelligent boy. I got along with him very well. He used to come and stay with me at Witney sometimes. Oh, he came when he was about 14 years old, I remember. Insisted on buying a lot of clothes. You know what they're like at that age. He'd heard that the Witney weavers were the best in the business, and he just couldn't wait to sample their wares.
Hey, how did you okay?
£20 he spent. I wouldn't have minded. It was all the money he had. So he had to borrow some from me for the rest of his visit. Mind you, later I got back an exchequer. And I had to agree with him about the Witney weavers. It really was excellent cloth. Well, sir, I think I should go and visit my church now. Good night to you and all your good friends here.
Good night, my Lord Bishop.
And so it went on. Peter de Roche's new town fulfilled all his expectations and those of his successors. 100 years later, when William of Edendon became bishop in 1346, he could not know that a great disaster was on its way, a catastrophe that would affect not only human life in every class of society, but agriculture, finance, and politics too. As Lord of the Manor of Witney, the new bishop immediately restocked his farm.
Did you get those 2 cart horses as I instructed?
Yes, my lord, I did. I paid £1, 2 shillings for the 2 of them.
Not bad, I suppose. Now, what about the oxen?
I calculated we'd need 14 for ploughing. They look like good strong beasts. And I paid £8, 1 shilling and 6pence.
Good. How much did you spend on cows?
I paid £8, 2 shillings and 9pence halfpenny for 15, my lord.
On the bull?
The bull was a lot, but I think he'll earn his keep, and I paid 15 shillings and 6pence. Sheep were a bit of an expensive item, though. They cost £56, 9 shillings and 11pence.
How many?
600, my lord.
That's a bit steep.
We'll get a good price for the wool, though.
I certainly hope so.
The sows were cheap, 8 shillings and 4pence for 2.
Did you have any money left over for poultry?
Yes, my lord, I did. I got a drake and 4 ducks for 1 and 8pence, and a cock and 5 hens for 9pence.
I estimated £77 altogether. Did you manage to keep within that budget?
Yes, my lord, I did. Total came to £75, 2 shillings and 5pence halfpenny.
Are the rents coming in properly?
Most of them, my lord, though some of those serfs are a little bit slow at paying up, though.
Why, 5 shillings a year is not excessive, surely.
Well, you know how it is. I mean, if they're ill, they can't sell their produce or work on their own land, then money gets scarce.
Well, I hope they're fulfilling their obligations to work for me on alternate days.
Yes, my lord, I make sure of that. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry to tell you that one man died last week.
Poor fellow, what was his name?
Roger Heath. I took possession of his best cows, as usual in such cases, and his son has promised to pay me the fee for inheriting the land. I collect tomorrow.
I must find time to visit my workers soon. But as you know, I have a great many church duties to occupy me at present. Is there anything else?
There is one small thing, my lord. Some of the rakes and sickles need to be replaced. The serfs are complaining they're too far gone to be repaired.
Well, I suppose we'll have to do as they tell us. They'll be asking me to pay them next.
3 years later it came, killing at least a third of the population of Europe. At the time they called it the Great Mortality, but we know it better as the Black Death. Our town was not spared. Now I quote from a distinguished writer of the 20th century, Winston Spencer Churchill. The character of the pestilence was appalling. The disease itself, with its frightful symptoms, the swift onset, the blotches, the hardening of the glands under the armpit or in the groin, these swellings which no poultice could resolve, these tumours which when lanced gave no relief, the hordes of virulent carbuncles which followed the dread harbingers of death, the delirium, the insanity which attended its triumph, the blank spaces which opened on all sides in human society, stunned and for a time destroyed the life and faith of the world. This affliction, added to all the severities of the Middle Ages, was more than the human spirit could endure. The Church, smitten like the rest in body, was wounded grievously in spiritual power. If God's mercy ruled the world, what sort of rule was this?
Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead.
No, please.
Bring out your dead. 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 Bring out your dead.
No!
Bring out your dead.
Oh, God, not my child!
Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead.
Sleep, sleep, children, death is kind. Pity those still left behind. Sleep, sleep, children, pain has passed. No more weeping, peace at last. Sleep, sleep, children, life is cheap. Safe forever, children, sleep.
In the year of the plague, We started off with 77 tenants on the home farm and ended up with only 20. 57 of them had died. That's not counting the wives and the children that went with them. I had to keep to the rules and take the best animal from each family when the father died, or the bishop would have wanted to know why. That was a job I had no stomach for, especially as my own little son was taken from me. I was supposed to collect fees from the families when they inherited the land, but about half of them had nobody left who could take over. Can you imagine what it was like trying to run a farm? I had to get the corn in somehow. Normally, we had 104 serfs to do it for us for free. But after the plague, we had to start hiring labour. In 6 years, we went from paying nothing to paying £108 in 1 year. And we only had 6 free labourers left. It was a disaster.
We can't go on like this, can we?
No, my lord.
Free labour doesn't seem to be an option anymore. I've decided to rent out my land and charge my workers 6 shillings and 8pence a year for the privilege of not working for me. That should bring in enough money for whatever land I keep. Do you not agree?
Of course, my lord. There's plenty of land going spare. More's the pity.
Over the years, after the Black Death, the bishops of Winchester became landlords instead of funds. Everywhere an economy based on barter was overtaken by a cash economy which has lasted until the present day. In later years, the plague returned many times, but mostly to the larger towns and cities. Witney was considered a safe haven, so much so that when Oxford was threatened by the disease, the fellows of Merton College came to take refuge in a house on Church Green, which was reserved for their use.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a 15-minute interval, 2 coffees being served upstairs.
I am a Witney blanket, original and best. You'll never get cold feet with me across your chest.
Witney was an ideal place for the processing of wool into blankets. The river Windrush provided power for the mills and pure water for the fulling process. The town occupied a strategic position for carrying goods between London and the West Country. And of course, the wool of the Cotswold sheep was of excellent quality.
The staple, deep and thick, through to the very grain, most strongly keep us out of the violentest rain. The body, long and large, the buttocks, equal broad, was fit to undergo a full and weighty load, and of the fleecy face, the flags do nothing glad, but everywhere it's stored, on the belly, and the back.
Here, let's have a drop of that ale. I'm parched.
Here, do you reckon we'll get this lot finished by tomorrow?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I expect you'll be round here with the next batch in the morning. Worse luck.
Worse luck? I don't know where we'd be without him and his wool.
Oh, I mean, this spinning's not so... Gee, this spinning's not so bad, but I mean, this carding, it's driving me balmy. I'd rather be out in the fields any day.
Aye. Well, you'd be out there in the wind and rain to your heart's content in the summer. Do you want half, Grandad?
Just half.
Just half? Can you go for the rest of the day?
Yeah, we've got too much work to do, we drink too much.
Right, give this one up. Anyway, I like spinning. Don't care what you say. And you've got to admit the money's not bad neither. You got 9 shillings last week, remember? And I got 7. You can't grumble at that.
Oh, you know me, I can grumble at anything.
Tell me about it. Here, do you know what he told me last time he came?
No, but you're going to tell me anyway, aren't you?
Well, you know one pack of wool weighs £240?
Yes, say it.
Hang on a minute. How many yards of yarn is that, Grandad?
It will make 300,000 yards of yarn.
300,000 yards of yarn?
Yes.
300,000? Well, I never.
Yeah.
Oh.
It will make 2 stockfuls. 2 stockfuls. Of probably about 20 blankets each.
Well, I never knew that.
Yeah. That's something new.
Well,
Say it then.
listen. He told me that in 1 week, one pack of wool keeps 58 people employed. What do you think of that?
Well, I reckon we'll be down to 53 if we don't get her running. Look at your Gran, she's been dropped off again. You can't take her out, you know.
Oh, give the poor old soul another 5 minutes. I'm going outside to stretch me legs. I've had enough of this. It's not doing my back no good. Drink up. I'm supposed to be drunk by the time I get back. It'd be nice to have a bit of sunshine round here, you know. I don't know. Looks like rain again. Oh, good heavens, good evening, sir. Where did you spring from?
I apologise for startling you, madam, but I was just about to give these good people some information on the wool trade.
Oh, so you're interested in blankets, are you? That's nice. Excuse me, Your Reverence. Will you have a nice sit down and I'll do this Whitney blankets, goods of rain and renown. Everyone knows wool blankets made in old Whitney town. Clean the carded spun woven on the fleeces we wove. Whitney blankets, made to keep the world warm. Here's a sailor, Royal Navy
Many thousand pairs of blankets in the years in between. Then another royal wage, George's bed linen free. Good evening, Your Majesties, and welcome. It's the blankets, with the blankets, washed up with thread, soft and warm, many blankets, when the world goes to bed. For a Spaniard, for a sailor, for a queen or a king, everyone loves Witney blankets for the comfort they bring. Everyone loves Witney blankets for the comfort they bring. Your Majesty, and welcome. Queen Anne was very good to us. She granted the blanket weavers the charge of incorporation. That was in 1711. I don't think she was given any blankets though. Anyway, that's when the blanket hall was built. You can still see it in the High Street. The company, as they called it, used to hold court. Very strict the rules were.
Mr. Thomas Bolton, one of the assistants of this company, is fined 2 shillings for giving the master the lie in open court. Mr. Jason Shepherd, the present master, is fined 20 shillings for making one stock full of 6-quarter blankets, which contained 1 blanket more than permitted by the bylaws. Mr. Robert Matthews and Son are fined 20 shillings for making one stock full of 9-quarter kersey blankets without any shoots of coloured yarn weaved at the end of each blanket, which they paid down, and the same is remitted to 2 shillings and 6pence.
But it was no serious business.
Mr. William Cook and Mr. Thomas Allsworth were sworn in as assistants of the company. The said assistants paid 10 shillings each, but it was remitted to 2 bottles of wine each.
Oh yes, quite a lot of eating and drinking went on down at the blanket hall, I can tell you. Salmon, veal, geese, beef, mutton, you name it, they'd have it for dinner, with plenty of beer and wine to wash it down. They even had their wives there. Well, I think they were their wives. Well, ladies anyway. Now the Tuckers were the men who used to do the fulling, drying and raising after the weavers had done their job. They had their own special feast, so it wasn't all hard work by any means. There was a special song the Tuckers used to sing. Would you like me to sing some tonight, Mr. Foxy Norris?
Yes, please.
We don't have any Tuckers available because they're always feasting. I'll have a go. The wondrous globe on which we live is quite surrounded everywhere with something quite invisible. It's called the atmospheric air. The air is fluid, light and thin, which forms of gas it does combine. It carries sound in order well. When put in motion, it is wind. Oh, how curious, wonderfully curious. The laws of nature are indeed most wonderfully curious. Families. All Witney folk know about the Colliers, the Smiths, the Marriotts, and the Earleys, and more besides. They set up factories and put in all sorts of machinery no one dreamt of in my day. I wouldn't have fancied it, but they got the job done quick as lightning and sold more blankets than ever before. All the work we did at home by hand, they did in the factory. Let me try and show you what I mean. Thank you very much, everyone. Here comes Fiona. Now, where's my granny gone? No, I'm sure she always tries to get away. Now, careful now, because you nearly got trapped in the curtains last night, didn't you? Oh, good evening, sir. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm the foreman of the mill, and I'm going to explain to you the 20 processes required to make a blanket.
Listen to him carefully. You'll only say it once.
Sorting, scouring, blending, milling, scribbling, carding, spinning, weaving, sewing, bleaching, dyeing, drying, raising, finishing, cutting, whipping, checking, smoothing, tacking, dispatching.
She's my granny's favourite, really. See you later then, Granny. Moan, that's all he ever does. I don't know why I stay, I tell you. Well, I do apologise, Mr. Foxy Norris. I don't know what came over me. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Let us give a little time and thought to Witney's children and the schools they have attended over the years. First we go back to the 1660s. Is Mr. Box about? Or Mrs. Box?
Here I am. I'm not late.
No need about, Madam Wheelworth. Please you're able to join us tonight.
My husband sends his apologies. As he unfortunately died before the school opened, he said I should be the one to come to this meeting. You know, it was his idea to start a grammar school and his money. But I was the one that had to see to all the practical details after he passed away. For instance, we do not accept a boy unless he can read English perfectly. This boy comes from quite a poor family, but as he was born in Witney, he has all the privileges of being a foundationer, and we don't charge fees for him. This boy, not only was he born in Witney, but he's also my grandson. So he has one of the best rooms in the house. You have to do something for the family after all. This boy, this boy is a foreigner. He comes from Banbury. So we do charge fees for him. But in every other way, he is treated exactly the same as the foundationers.
What time does school begin, Mrs. Box?
6 o'clock in the summer when it gets light early, and 7 or 1:30 in the winter. The boys have a break from 11 till 1, and then they work through till 5 o'clock. Of course, when it gets dark early in the winter, they have to finish before 5 o'clock, because candles are never used in the classroom.
That's a very long school day.
Do you think so? Our boys don't mind. They are very hard-working.
Ah, that's the headmaster, I presume.
Yes, Dr. Gregory, a first-class man, full of enthusiasm, absolutely sound in Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, as well as being perfectly divinity. He has written written several books on grammar, and also a welcome to King Charles II when he returned to the throne.
Sit.
Children are the hopes of God's kingdom, and His Majesty's too. My task is to teach them religion, loyalty and learning. Religion towards their God, loyalty towards their king, and learning to fit them for the service of both.
What do the boys learn, Mrs. Ross?
Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, of course.
And are there any other teachers in the school?
But of course, there is room for over 100 pupils here, both boarders and day boys. So there's an usher to help with the teaching. He also is very skilled in Latin and Greek.
And what about writing and arithmetic?
This is a grammar school, remember? But if parents really feel their boys need those subjects, there's a writing master who can offer them at £1 shilling a quarter. Tell me, Mr. Fox, in ours, how many boys would be in our school now?
I've no idea, Mrs. Fox. Times have changed, you know, since my time. But since 1902, I believe, girls have been admitted to the school.
How absolutely wonderful. But I don't know what my husband will say when I tell him. I am very glad to learn, though, that the books which I gave from the school library are to be preserved at the school. I think I really must go now. I've enjoyed our little conversation. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mrs. Fox, and thank you. The grammar school was an excellent institution, but a good many Witney people felt that the curriculum was, shall we say, a little unpractical. In 1723, a wealthy cloth merchant named John Holloway, a nonconformist, founded a new school.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Holloway. Would you be kind enough to tell these good people something about your school?
Surely. For the sake of the records, I shall read from the contract I have drawn up. I give my house on Narrow Hill to be used as a schoolhouse for 12 free scholars, the sons of poor journeyman weavers. The pupils shall be clothed in the manner of the Blue Coat Hospital boys in London. Boys? Pupils will start at the age of 7 years and stay until 14, when they will have their indenture fees paid and become apprentices in the blanket industry. The schoolmaster shall be of no clergyman, a very sober man, and a good writer who can cast accounts. For doing this, he shall have the sum of £10 per annum, paid twice yearly.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway, for taking time to come and speak to us tonight.
Good night.
Good night.
Come on, boys.
Getting a little closer to my time, a national school was set up in Bridge Street, round about 1813.
Hands on desks, please. Now, 7 times table, please.
1 7 is 7, 2 7s are 40, 3 7s are 21, 4 7s are 28, 5 7s are 37.
Just a moment. Dorothy, 5 7s are?
37.
37? Is that correct, girls?
No, miss.
No, indeed. Dorothy, stand up. Go to the back of the class. You will begin again. 1
7 is 7, 2 7s are 40, 3 7s 21, 4 sevens are 28, 5 sevens are 35, 6 sevens are 42, 7 sevens are 49, 8 sevens are 56, 9 sevens are 63, 10 sevens are 70, 11 sevens are 77, 12 sevens are 84.
Not bad. Make sure you know your 8 times for tomorrow. Dorothy, sit down again. Now show me your slate. Quickly, no talking. Yours needs cleaning, Dorothy. Not like that. Now here are your sums. Copy them down very neatly, then work them out. And no cheating. All right, you can start now.
Excuse me, madam, could you spare me a moment, please?
Miss Williams, take over. Yes, can I help you?
Could you tell us just a little about your school?
Well, I'm not used to so many visitors all at once, but I'll try. What did you want to know?
How many teachers are there?
Well, I take the girls and there's a gentleman who takes the boys. In addition, we each have 2 pupil teachers working under us. Miss Williams is one of mine. They are quite useful, but they do take up a lot of our time. We have to give them special instruction on 5 evenings a week.
And do the parents have to pay fees?
Oh yes, it's a penny a week for each child.
And what else do they learn?
Well, arithmetic, as you see, and reading and writing, and religious instruction, of course. And my girls also do knitting and sewing. And of course there's singing. They all love singing. Would you like them to sing for you?
I'm sure they'll all be delighted to hear it.
Girls, the ladies and gentlemen would like to hear you sing. Now stand up. Miss Williams. 1, 2, 3.
Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, sonnez la mattina, ding dang dong, are you sleeping, brother John, morning bells are ringing, ding dang dong, Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, sonnez la mattina, ding dang dong, ding dang dong, ding dang dong, ding dang dong, ding dang dong.
That was charming. That was Fine, thank you. Now, in the 1860s, the Bridge Street School was transferred to a new building on Church Street, St. Mary's, which I'm glad to see is still a school. Meanwhile, part of the church was used as an infant school.
This is the Witney Infant School, where we are taught the happy rule to love our God and parents kind, and leave all useless things behind. But we must come with faces clean, neat clothes all whole, fit to be seen, and only a penny we do pay per week for learning every day. So let us all attend to time, be there before or just that night, and in the afternoon so true, be always in their school at 2. Now we would all attention pay to all that our kind teachers say, and pray that God may bless our school, His friends in every little room.
The Wesleyans, too, had their own school, which started in the 1850s and lasted about 100 years, until 1953, in fact. When it closed down, the remaining children went to the brand new school at Wood Green.
much harder.
How about needlework and housecraft?
Well, we know she can sew, first in form and good at housecraft too.
Art has not been what it should.
Town work has been very good. Conduct satisfactory we concur. Bright and friendly,
Inattentive,
always helpful,
not inventive.
all in all a quite successful town. Bright and friendly,
So attentive,
always helpful,
fast inventive.
all in all a quite successful
The Wesleyan School was founded to meet the needs of the many Methodist families in the town. It cannot be denied that disagreements and rivalries have existed in the past between the established church and the nonconformists. But by my time, the atmosphere was one of mutual respect, as I believe it is today. Mr. Wesley? Mr. John Wesley? I'm sorry, I was expecting Mr. John Wesley at this time.
I am John Wesley, and hopefully I am on time. I hate lateness.
You are welcome and punctual, but your dress is not of your age.
Ah, my dress, like the message I first brought to Witney, is of every age. In the 18th century, I was always a modern man, with a modern message, and I consider that nothing should have changed to make our listeners think otherwise. Hence my dress.
I hope you had a more comfortable journey than you had on your first visit to Witney.
Ah, you're referring to my ducking in the Thames at Ensham. Before the toll bridge, that was quite an experience. On horseback, with the river in full flow, so much so that the ferryman would not cross me over. I had great fun. Keep to the centre of the causeway was his only advice, as I had to get to address a great gathering. Not easy when the causeway's under several feet of muddy water. We had to swim for it, my horse and I. Your good folk must really appreciate the toll bridge, and I see it's still only 2p.
How often did you visit Witney?
Oh, nearly every year. I'd known Witney since my early days as an undergraduate at Oxford, and after my conversion it became one of the places where I could always be sure of a good welcome. Sometimes I spoke in meeting houses, and sometimes in the open. On Wood Green I spoke to one of my largest groups, virtually the whole town, plus folk from Burford, Cholbury and Finstock, where my great friend Nancy Bolton lived. The Witney folk were always special to me, serious perhaps, but decent and attentive, and lively too, and always ready to rejoice in the love of the Lord.
But superstitious perhaps, because I've heard the story of a great storm.
Ah, you refer to the 1783. That summer was a bit like this, only more so. No 2 days the same, few of them dry. You're referring to Richard Rodder's prophecy. Now Richard was a travelling Methodist preacher, and he was well known for his extrovert preaching too. He was preaching on Wood Green, and in the middle of his more than usual provocative sermon, he felt compelled to say,
"Repent in the Lord and take note, you sinners all. Before this day month you will see and you will hear something very uncommon."
Within a few days, the weather deteriorated, and a hot, sticky calm descended, only to be followed by a mighty storm. 2 people were killed by lightning, and haymakers were knocked unconscious. But it was not the only storm. Several such storms of equally frightening force followed. I have the notes in my own journal from that time.
There was an uncommon storm here Thursday night, but even that was nothing to that which occurred on the Friday. About 10, the storm seemed to stop right over the town, and the roar of thunder and the lightning-like streaks of flame were inseparable in time and continuance.
What's going on?
Those who seemed were rudely wakened, and many thought that Judgment Day had arrived. The townsfolk congregated together in the street and knelt in prayer, almost like on the day of Pentecost, in the continuing sheets of flaming lightning. The grace of God came down on the town in a manner never seen in modern times. As the manner was so universal, so it was lasting. And although the storm abated and faded into memory, the spirit of grace and supplication remained. The people flocked to the planned prayer meeting that Saturday so that they could not all gain entry, and many were left outside to look in through the windows and doors. On the Sunday, the church was filled much more before the normal time. Such a sight had never been seen, or perhaps since. The rector was indeed equally moved, and delivered a powerful sermon with uncommon eagerness. When I returned on the following Wednesday, the same joyful seriousness remained on the people. I preached on Wood Green that evening, where a multitude had gathered. My theme was the Son of Man coming in glory. The word fell heavy on them, and those doubting felt their hearts melting like wax. On the Thursday they were still eager to hear, and the preaching house was overfilled again. Afterwards, 34 sought membership of the society, and most of them, there is reason to believe, will bring forth fruit with patience.
So, the ranks of the new Society of Methodism were greatly extended.
Yes, Mr. Rodder, whose words had a paraprophetic quality, admitted over 50 new members.
Ah, the so-called thunder and lightning Methodists.
A trifle unfair, Mr. Norris, but from these bad weather Christians grew the church that you and I know today. Later that year, and for many years after, I returned to find a steadily growing congregation of joyful people, aware that they'd been saved by grace, and thirsting after knowledge of the love of the Lord.
So, Witney was an important town for the development of Methodism.
Anyway, it has been a great pleasure to see the modern Witney, and I'm particularly looking forward to seeing the High Street Church before I leave. What a wonderful monument it is to God and the grace that he freely offers to us all.
It certainly is wonderful. It's over 140 years old. It was 30 years old when I first came to Witney.
Well, as I said when I arrived, my dress is modern because my message is too. Time in the hands of God is unimportant, and his grace is here today forever the same as when you and I were preaching. I wish you peace and joy, my friend.
And I wish you the same. Thank you and good night.
Farewell.
Now, John Wesley was a man of peace, and Witney, one of his favourite places, has nearly always been a peaceful town. During the Civil War, when Charles I was using Oxford as his base, the weapons belonging to the Witney trained band, a sort of emergency force, were commandeered by the Royalists.
Right, you two, I want this cart loading, the equipment over there, and then taking down the quartermaster's store. Right, get to it. Start with swords. Come on, get a move on. Just the two of them. Next, helms. Is that all? Right, breastplates. And then bandoliers.
In June 1644, King Charles himself stayed at the White Hart. For 3 nights he stayed, as his army returned to Oxford from a failed attempt. Three nights he stayed at the White Hart with me, as his army returned to Oxford from a failed attempt to march northwards.
His progress had been blocked by General Waller.
Have a care! 3 cheers for the king, lads! Up, up! Huzzah! Up, up! Huzzah! Up, up! Huzzah! Right, let's get this out of here. Can't keep the king waiting.
In July, who should appear with his troops but General Waller himself? How fortunate for Witney that their 2 visits did not coincide.
I hate that drum's discordant sound, parading round and round and round. To faultless use it freely yields, and lures from cities and from fields, to sell their liberties for charms of tawdry lace and glittering arms, and when ambition's voice commands, to march and fight and fall in foreign lands. I hate that drum's discordant sound, parading round and round and round, to mere tops of ravaged plains, and burning towns and ruined swains, mangled limbs and dying groans, and mangled limbs and orphans' moans, and all its miseries and bestows, fill the catalogue of human woes.
Time passed, and other wars came and went, until 1914 and the outbreak of the Great War, or as some people call it, ironically as it turned out, the War to End Wars. 157 men from Witney lost their lives in that cruel conflict, and you can see their names on the War Memorial on Church Green. A great many local men were sent to France, where they faced constant danger from enemy attack, as well as hideous conditions in the trenches.
Short break then.
God, my aching feet. Oh, these boots are killing me. I never like it when we get there. No, we can't be far from that front line now, though, can we? No, the gun sounded awfully close just now. Do you want a drink? Oh, no, it's all right, thanks, mate. You got something? I've got something. Andrew, it tastes like trench water. Well, where are you from then, mate? I'm from Birmingham. What about you? Witney. Oh, Whitby. No, Witney. Whitby Bay. Cockles, muzzles. No, Whitney. Whitney. Haven't you heard of Whitney blankets? What county's that in there? Oxfordshire. Oh, blankets. Yeah, Whitney blankets, Oxfordshire. No, all these other blanket things to the wife, you know, blanket bedding and all that. You must have heard of Whitney. I mean, there's a song been written about it. Okay, I know who it is now, Whitney. Yeah, it's a song. No. You must have heard it, played it in the musical. You've heard, haven't you, lads?
Yeah.
The song about Whitney. You know, the one that that lady wrote about her auntie and uncle that lived there.
Oh, yeah. Cool. And how's it going?
There's an old-fashioned house in the old-fashioned street. You put it in there. No, it's written about Whitney. Yeah, I know it all, though. Go on then. Well, there's an old-fashioned house in an old-fashioned street, in a quaint little old-fashioned town. There's a place where the cobblestones harass their feet as they struggle uphill and then down. And on to and fro through the world I must go, my heart as it beats in my breast. Where I may roam, to that old-fashioned home will fly back like a bird to its nest.
Whitby?
No, not Whitby. Anyone? No.
Birmingham.
That's something like Whitby, Oxfordshire. Remember that?
Incredible.
All right.
Yeah. Right, lads, time's up. Yeah, come on, get a move on. Pull in. Squad, attention! Right, turn! By the left, quick, march!
Mademoiselle from Armitage, hallelujah. Mademoiselle from Armitage, hallelujah.
A mere 21 years after the war to end wars, the next one broke out. Really, you know, I'm not sorry to have missed the 20th century, and I often wonder what the next century has in store for you, but then I mustn't digress. The Witney Aerodrome was built in the last year of World War I by the famous aircraft company de Havilland, was used as a repair base for Tiger Moths, Hurricanes and Spitfires. Evacuees came in large numbers right at the beginning of the war and stayed in local homes.
Come along, children. Gather in quietly, please. The sooner you're all together, the sooner we can find you some nice ladies to go home to. That's it. I know you've had a long, long journey, some of you all the way from London, haven't you? Good evening, ladies. Right, Mrs. Hopday, would you like to come over, please, and shoot the children? Yes. As many as you can, thank you. Right, Mrs. Sear. We've rather a lot of children here, haven't we? Oh, I'm so pleased. Right. Now behave, children. Bye. To Mrs. Daly.
Choice.
Yes.
I'll take yours. I don't want boys nasty, noisy things.
Oh dear. Right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, children. Come along then, you three. You have the doubtful privilege of coming home with me.
Most of the evacuees went back to London after a few weeks or months, but quite a few were still here when, at 5:30 one November morning in 1940, the most dramatic moment of Witney's war occurred. Amazingly, there were no serious injuries, though damage was quite extensive, especially in Church Green and Corn Street. The church suffered many broken windows.
Oh, I'm glad you're all right. Someone said they got high work.
Yeah, nearly. Only just missed us.
Oh.
Great big crater behind the brewery. We all rushed into Susie's room as soon as we heard the noise.
Oh, it was just like thunder.
It was. There was broken glass all over her car.
Oh, no, was she all right?
Well, yes. I mean, she was crying her eyes out, of course, but not a scratch on her neck.
Thank God. It was quite funny, really. Funny? Yes! I was blown clean out of bed. Nearly 90 and all. Well, seeing as I was up, I looked out the window and the streets were covered with broken slates and glass everywhere. They're cleaning up the mess at the moment.
Yeah, I've just been past the baker's.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
bread all over the place from the baker's window. What was that big fire? That wasn't the grammar school, was it?
No, it
because you know there were all those army lorries parked on Church Green. Well, they've all been burnt out. It's horrible up there. And there are quite a lot of broken windows and damage at the school. I don't think it's going to be open for a week or two.
That'll please the kids anyway. Here, our Jean's been sent back from Mount Mill. Well, all that glass, it's cut straight through the walks on the looms and they've got to be redone.
Oh, no. Hey, the siren didn't go, did it?
I never heard anything. Did you, Ethel?
No, not a sausage. Mind you, I wouldn't mind a sausage. I haven't had one of them for ages. Nah, it's typical. What do you think he picked on Witney for, anyway?
No. Well, I did hear that a certain person,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know who I mean, was seen going down to Langle just before the bomb dropped with a torch.
Going to meet another certain person, I shouldn't wonder. Not to signal the enemy. Anyway, you need a torch on Mangle to see where you're going. Or do it. Nah, they must have seen a fire somewhere.
The stokers have been cleaning out the chimneys at the brewery, I know that much. But like you say, I reckon it must have just been a mistake. Probably just trying to get rid of his load before heading home. After all, that is what they're supposed to do, isn't it?
And I did hear them going over last night. You can't mistake that sound. It's nothing like the RAF, is it?
Not like our boys, no.
And my cousin up in Birmingham says the raids up there are really bad.
Well, I think we've been lucky here so far. Anyway, can't sit here chatting all day, which I could do. Nah, I better go and see what they've got in the shops. Or on the street! Anyway, I'm ever so glad you're all right. Here, have you heard from your lads?
I'm all right now, yeah. I've had a letter from my Billy.
See you then.
Bye.
The town was lucky enough to escape further bombing. The war again took its toll on local men, 35 of whom were never to return from battles in the Far East, North Africa, and nearer home in Normandy after D-Day. The end of the conflict was celebrated in many different ways.
There's a girl wants to go on leave.
we're on the subject of celebrations, there is one special one that happens every year in September. It started in the year 1243, when the king ordered 2 bucks to be provided for the bishop's feast of Witney. That was, of course, no less than 750 years ago.